Hello everyone, Star Snovia here. Considering that Solo has basically crashed and burned thanks to the boycott and the people just not wanting to see it because of that abomination that was The Last Jedi, I figured when I was watching Deadpool 2 and Infinity War today, what the hell? Not only does this validate my opinion because now people can't say I'm criticizing a movie that I haven't seen, I I believe I have solved the final piece of the puzzle on everything that is wrong with Disney Star Wars. Honestly. I know some people say, I don't think you need to see Solo to know that. That's been apparent since The Force Awakens. Hear me out. There's so many problems with this film. Through production issues that have happened, we've all heard it, throughout all of last year, what an awful actor Aaron Reich is. The firing of Lord and Miller due to creative differences. The movie was a mess from the very beginning. And the fact that Ron Howard had to save this film, I'm using that word loosely because he didn't save shit. I mean, I will give Ron Howard credit. At least it's not a poorly edited mess like The Last Jedi and Rogue One are. But is it worse than The Last Jedi? No, not even close. It's worse in some ways. If you are a huge fan of Han Solo, you probably will hate this far more than The Last Jedi. And if you're a fan of Lando, you probably will hate this more than The Last Jedi. Though, both films, I think, are bad, just in different ways. The Last Jedi made The Force Awakens unwatchable, and basically was a big middle finger to longtime fans of Star Wars. Solo was nowhere near offensive, but it has its share of issues. Again, it's a forgettable side story, just like Rogue One. But unlike Rogue One, it doesn't have a scene that's memorable. Yes, big deal. Darth Maul shows up in the end. But what was his point of being in the movie? Even his cameo, didn't make the movie any less forgettable. Darth Vader's scene in Rogue One, that scene alone is the most memorable scene of the whole movie. Without that scene, no one would even say that many positive things about Rogue One because that's how memorable that scene was because the rest of the movie was, completely forgettable. Solo is so forgettable, I forgot everything about the film after I saw it. Then again, when you see better movies right afterwards, like Infinity War, which was fucking amazing, I loved it, and Deadpool 2, which was, oh my god, I love that film as well, that film just looks worse. Now, Solo, what makes this movie bad? Well, for one, Alan Aaron Reich, whatever the fuck his name is a terrible actor. He has no charisma behind him. He looks nothing like Han Solo and acts nothing like Han Solo in any way. There is no continuity between his version of Han and Harrison Ford's version of Han. And anyone that says that he was great as Han Solo needs to get their head re-examined because we obviously saw a very different movie. He is the main problem with this film, Aaron Reich, because every scene he's in, which is pretty much almost the entire movie, sucks. Anything you could say positive about this film is because of Donald Glover as fucking Lando, and he's barely in the film. And even though this is the first Star Wars film where there isn't Rebels versus Imperials, thank God it's something new, it still doesn't have the look of a Star Wars film. This movie, it feels like whoever wrote this film or the people that did the production design went as far away as possible to make this look as little like Star Wars as possible. This movie is the final nail in the coffin when it comes to these people in Lucasfilm have no understanding of Star Wars, of what it is. They can't even get anything right. I don't care if you have some actress, Emilia Clarke, who can't fucking act even in Game of Thrones, in this film. It's not going to make it any less terrible. I'm just amazed that these films just get worse and worse. Even Ron Howard is the only reason why it's not worse than The Last Jedi. Because Ron Howard at least is able to make... He's made good movies in the past. Ron Howard deserved better than this. And he's being thrown under the bus because Ron Howard fucking is the only reason fucking this movie is even watchable. And I am being generous saying that because this movie is barely watchable. There isn't even a good movie hidden in there like there is in Rogue One, where if you change some things about Rogue One, reduce the cast of characters, and you would have a film that was far better than Solo. Solo is forgettable. Any of the characters that get introduced, you'll forget about them as soon as you leave the theater. The only reason I even know who Kira is because of Emilia Clarke. The only thing I'll give that is positive is at least Emilia Clarke is nice to look at. Unlike the past few actresses they've cast in these movies. Does it sound misogynist? Maybe a little bit. But let's be real here. If you look at Disney Ridley, in these movies, and you see her in real life, there's a huge difference in how she looks. They take people that are attractive and they make them look ugly. They didn't do that with Emilia Clarke. She looks as good as always, but that's not here or there. A problem with Solo, in general, other than Aaron Reich's non-existent acting ability, it's dull. It's boring. It explains things that didn't need to be explained. And now the Millennium Falcon doesn't feel as cool because of this movie. One of the most iconic ships in sci-fi, is not as cool anymore because they revealed too much about it. They showed too much. And the only reason why the Millennium Falcon looks the way it does because it got wrecked during the Kessel Run. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, how is it that non-canon novels in the expanded universe is able to keep things consistent with how Han is in A New Hope? This version of Han Solo isn't even close to being like Harrison Ford. If you're going to do a young Han Solo, you can make him a little like his older self, but have him be naive and make some mistakes and learns from them. It's like, I'm going to use an example. You don't see any growth in his character in this movie. No development. Paradise Share, which is the first book in the Han Solo trilogy by A.C. Crispin, sees him, growing. Someone who wants to live a respectable life. But things don't turn out that way. It's like this movie, they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. They didn't understand Han Solo. They didn't understand him at all in the slightest. How is it that writers in the EU were able to understand these characters when there was no movies being made? How? It's like these writers have no respect for the characters and have no understanding. It's like there's no consistency with Aaron Reich's version of Han Solo and Harrison Ford. They're completely different characters. So how does Han Solo go from being a cynic, you go from Aaron Reich Han Solo to being a cynic, and then being who he is at the end of Return of the Jedi, then goes back to being a scumbag like he is at the start of A New Hope. It's like there's no inconsistency with his character. It's like these people have no concept of continuity in this fucking universe. How is it that Marvel is able to tell such a ongoing story without contradicting each other? It's like the way they approach these movies, they're only being approached from a film to film basis rather than being approached as one film in a big universe. It shouldn't be looked at as just one story. It should be looked at as one story out of a bigger story. Solo didn't need to be this bad. It's like it feels like the people that are involved in these movies, they go to other films, other sources besides Star Wars to draw from. Hey, you idiots at Lucasfilm, you could fucking ask Lilin Chi, the master of the holocron, for ideas if you need help coming up with stuff for the movies. You do have the resources, right? But of course, they'll never use them. It's like, they blame the fans for this movie failing, and they have no one to blame but themselves. This movie fails in every single way. And I haven't even gotten to the part that really pissed me off, is the relationship, or lack thereof, of Han, Lando, and Chewbacca. It's like, what is up with these people in the new Star Wars having such issues with relationships now? I don't understand why I did not see this with The Last Jedi, but it's heavily apparent in this movie that they have a issue with relationships in any form, whether it's with lovers, fathers and sons. I'm using that because you already know why. Friends. It's like anything that has to do with a relationship, is looked down on in these new movies. They don't even respect that sort of thing. It's like, how is it that Han and Lando are good friends in the original trilogy when in Solo, it seemed like they couldn't stand each other? Like, I don't see them being good friends. It seemed like they didn't really like each other that much. Han and Chewie. How can you get this fucking relationship wrong? It's like Chewie's more like a fucking pet than he is, a sworn brother of Han Solo. It's like, it disgusts me on how they treat relationships in these movies. Whether it's with a friend or with their parents, it's like they have such issues. It's like, is this some kind of antisocial behavior that these people are projecting onto Star Wars because they never had friends when they were growing up, or their relationship with their parents were non-existent, and they're lashing out using Star Wars? I'm sick of this shit. I'm no conservative. I'm as far left as they come. But I believe relationships are important for human beings to function. We need each other to survive. And the fact that you have antisocial people writing these movies is sickening. It's destructive in general to even promote such relationships. And these new movies, you cannot connect with any of these characters because these characters don't connect with each other. There is no relationship at all. I may be going a little off topic here, but this movie has the same problems as the other movies before it. What is Rey's relationship with Ben and Poe? Non-existent. What is Jan Erso's relationship with her squad mates in Rogue One? Non-existent. What's, again, with Rey and everyone else? Non-existent. There is no relationship between any of these characters in these movies. And I refuse to call Aaron Reich's Han Solo Han. He's a disgrace. I'm just going to call him freaking, I don't even know, fucking Soylo. I'm going to call him Soylo. That's what I'm going to call him because he doesn't deserve to be called Han. Soylo has no relationship with any of the characters around him. Even Chewbacca, who's his best friend, supposed to be his best friend. And they can't even get that right. And one thing that really irritated me about this film is it was boring. That's another thing I could say. It was boring. And don't get me started on that goddamn droid with her fucking droid right activist bullshit, which by the way, doesn't do anything to advance the plot. And when the fucking droid died, I was clapping in the theater. Speaking of theater, there was no one in this fucking movie, really. There's like 8 people in a big auditorium. And I fucking saw Infinity War the same day I saw this. And even though it was a small crowd, the movie's been out for since the end of April, it still had a bigger crowd than Solo. This film is terrible, honestly. And it's disregard for how Han Solo is as a character and his relationship with Lando and Chewbacca is just sickening. And I cannot believe that this abomination overwrites such a beautiful trilogy that was written. By the way, if you're gonna say I'm a misogynist or I don't understand Star Wars or whatever, A.C. Crispin was a woman, and she understood Han Solo, and she did this 20 years prior to this abomination coming out. She understood how Han Solo was. She respected the character. She wrote Han Solo when he was about the same age as he was in this fucking movie. And you know what she did? She actually added to his character. And it made it seem like, yeah, I can understand why he would act this way. You want to know the real story of how Han Solo became who he is? Don't watch this film. Or if you've watched this film and you hated it because I don't know why you would watch this film unless you want to go to a video like this to see how I feel about it. Here's the thing. You want pre-episode 4 Han Solo stories? Here's the Han Solo Adventures by Brian Daley. This person in 1978 understood Han Solo, despite the fact there was only one film out at the time. Yeah, read this if you want a Han Solo story pre-episode 4. You want a Han Solo story where he's young and inexperienced? Here's Han Solo before he became a smuggler. Paradise Share. Yeah, you want to know about Han Solo's first love that is much better than Kira? Read this. You want to understand how Han Solo and Chewbacca became, best shipmates and how Han met Lando? That feels organic? Read this afterwards. And if you want to know what happens towards the end and how Han Solo ended up becoming the person who he is in A New Hope and why he is so reluctant to join the rebellion or help anyone in the rebellion, Rebel Dawn. These are the books you should read instead. Yeah, it's not something you could visually see, but you know what? At least those stories actually stay true to the character of Han Solo, Chewbacca, and Lando. Because unlike this movie, A.C. Crispin, 20 years ago, understood what Star Wars was about. Family, friends. One of the core aspects of Star Wars, I'd put family and friends as one of the same. One of the biggest aspects of Star Wars, besides good versus evil and the hero's journey, is non-existent in Solo. Han Solo isn't just a badass gunslinger that wants to shoot first. Han Solo is much more to that. Much more than that to me. And there's much more to him. And if you want to read a story that takes place before episode 4, that is done well, that with a writer that actually cares about the character, read H.C. Crispin's novels. It's a disgrace that this woman's stories are overwritten for this garbage. Seriously, do not see this movie, honestly. The only reason I saw it was for this channel. And the fact that it's crashing and burning. This movie has, once and for all, proven Lucasfilm doesn't understand Star Wars. And honestly, I think it's too late to save the franchise at this point, considering the fact they don't understand this. And the fact that you have people that have such problems with relationships, and it's apparent in these films, it's obvious. Just see Deadpool 2. If you're seeing this video at the time that Deadpool 2 is still in theaters. If not, read these instead. These are worth your time, unlike that abomination. And A.C. Crispin is not a fucking hack like Joe Caston, or whatever the fuck his name is. May the Force be with you. And fuck Soylo.